Hello, friends. It's 11:48 p.m. on a Wednesday night. My kids finally went to sleep. I've been wanting to record this for a while. When we just first heard of the shooting of Charlie Kirk around 3 p.m., I happened to be live with my co-host Danielle Moody for Democracy-ish. And since then, we have found out that Charlie Kirk, who is 31-year-old founder of Turning Points USA, has died. It's a tragic accident, and I believe, regardless of who kills or regardless of their ideology, you should be morally consistent. If you condemn political violence, and we still don't know if this was political violence because we still do not have a suspect as of 11:49 p.m., and as such, we do not know what their ideology was. But in general, if you've seen me, I bring my receipts. I am consistent. When it came to Luigi Mangione as the alleged shooter and killer of the United Health CEO, I said political violence, vigilante violence, especially in the United States of America, a country of 340 million people, which has 400 million guns. More guns than people in the United States of America, where there are mass shootings on a daily basis. Oh, much like today, because, of course, in America, as soon as we heard about Charlie Kirk being shot in Utah during a tour in which there were 3,000 people listening to him, neighboring in Denver, we found out of another tragic shooting, another tragic high school shooting that left 3 people injured. This is not normal in any other country except the United States of America. The number one killer of teens and children in the United States of America is gun violence. So I digress. What I said with Luigi Mangione, and he is the alleged killer of the United Healthcare CEO, is that political violence, vigilante violence in the United States of America is not good, regardless of what you think of the shooter or the victim or their cause, because it will escalate. And furthermore, in this country, this militarized country, with this administration, it will be used as a Reichstag fire for this authoritarian regime to crack our skulls. As this is happening, folks, you can't make this up. 2 days ago, the Supreme Court, the corrupt right-wing reeks in black robes who make up the majority of the conservative Supreme Court, just gave a thumbs up and a green light for the Trump administration and his Gestapo. I use the terms, and I'll explain why if anyone wants me to explain why I use the terms, to racially profile in their pursuit of brown people in LA. That's right. The same Supreme Court who says you should not use race as a criteria to level the academic playing field. We're going to strike down affirmative action. Said, you know what? Go ahead and use racial profiling, oh, you masked armed ICE agents, to terrorize any brown person in Los Angeles. About 40% of Los Angeles, maybe even half of Los Angeles's population is in some way, shape, or form Latino or brown. So you can do that. And there was a video that came out today from LA where armed masked ICE agents are surrounding, you probably all saw that, they're surrounding a red car and they drag out these innocent people, including a pregnant woman, with guns aimed at them. That's fine. MAGA celebrates that. They applaud that. What you all remember at the RNC, they had the deportation posters, right? But again, I'm not them. I try to be morally consistent. So I condemn that murder and that use of political violence. I have also condemned Hamas's terrorist attack on October 7th. When I was on Piers Morgan for the first time, being brown-skinned and Muslim, of course, if you're brown-skinned Arab, Palestinian Muslim, you have to preemptively condemn every violent act done by every violent Arab or brown or Muslim person of all time. The same thing does not happen to, my pro-Israel colleagues. They are never asked to preemptively condemn Israel's war crimes. The killing of Palestinian children in Gaza, the amputation of Palestinian kids, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir's straight-up genocidal comments. It's only me. So for those of you who remember that clip that kind of went viral 2 years ago, I preemptively condemned violence done by Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, ISIS, Hamas, and I also condemned the sin that is chocolate hummus, right? I also then condemned Israel's war crimes against Palestinians in Gaza. When we found out that Donald Trump was shot, and I don't think he was shot. It seems more likely the assassin's bullet hit the glass off the teleprompter that nicked his ear. I was on Piers Morgan. I condemned. I didn't care who it was. I condemned it. And if you all recall, because I keep the receipts, and I'm going to bring a lot of receipts today, and I'm going to be super blunt. The right wing, much like right now, and again, I want to remind everyone it's 11:53 p.m. on a Wednesday night. As of right now, we still do not have a shooter in custody. As of now, we still do not know the motives, if any, of the shooters. But regardless of those facts, those very pertinent facts, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, the commander in chief, who's supposed to lower the temperature and be the president of all Americans without any evidence, has gone on television and blamed it on the left. He said that liberal criticism of conservatives was, quote, directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. Again, there are no suspects right now in custody. We do not know any of the motivations, right? But that does not stop the president of the United States, the king and daddy of MAGA, from blaming liberal criticism of conservatives as, quote, being directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. Ironically, he did not mention actual terrorists. Oh, the number one domestic terror threat in America for several years running, the GOAT, which is right-wing terrorism and white supremacist terrorism. Nothing comes close. Muslim terrorism doesn't come close. Left-wing terrorism doesn't come close. It is the GOAT for several years running, not a peep about right-wing terrorism, not a peep about white supremacist terrorism. But I digress. In addition to Donald Trump, the president of the United States, without any evidence or proof, blaming this on liberals and the left, you also had Fox blaming this on the liberals and the left, specifically Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfeld. You also had Elon Musk, the one who did two Zig Heils. He, on Twitter, his landscape, which, by the way, has platformed Nazis, blaming the left. No shooter has been found as of 11:55 p.m. We still do not know the motivations. I want to remind you, when Donald Trump survived his assassination attempt, before we found out who the shooter was, the right wing blamed the left and liberals and said it's because you call us Nazis. That's why. Even though I didn't call Donald Trump a Nazi, the person who actually called him America's Hitler was J.D. Vance, and Donald Trump punished him by making him his vice president. So maybe he took it as a compliment. And the reason why some people might call you Nazis is because Donald Trump has, quoted Adolf Hitler in demonizing fellow Americans. I want to remind everyone, in October, Donald Trump said that he would unleash the National Guard and the military, quote, against the enemy from within. Fellow Americans, it is September. There are 2,000 National Guard members, armed members, right here in D.C., 20 minutes away from me. The Supreme Court, for those who are joining us a bit late, said, go ahead and racially profile to crack down skulls, masked armed agents in L.A., and now he's threatening the National Guard to be unleashed in Chicago. Interestingly enough, Monday, when Botox Levitt came out, instead of talking about the Epstein files, instead of talking about Donald Trump allegedly being an FBI informant, that's what Mike Johnson said, instead of talking about the horrible job numbers, she instead talked about a Ukrainian refugee who was attacked by an immigrant, right, in North Carolina. Interestingly enough, no National Guard members are being sent to North Carolina. This shooting, which I condemn, and I'm going to bring the receipts because I've been consistent in condemning political violence across the board, regardless of who does it, was in Utah. Nobody's threatening sending the National Guard to Utah. In fact, the cities and the states that have high murder rates, Missouri, Tennessee, Louisiana, no National Guard members. Who has he sent the National Guard members against? Blue cities with black mayors. The double standard. The double standards. All right. So I'm here condemning the violence. I'm here condemning political violence. I remember when there was a shooter of Stephen Scalise back in the day. It was like a shooter with mixed ideologies, but didn't like Republicans. Democrats across the board condemn him. I condemned him, right? The shooter who ended up trying to assassinate Donald Trump, but got like the glass which nipped his ear. Y'all remember who it was? A Republican gun nut, a white man who, by the way, voted for Trump. That was the shooter. That was the shooter. And after it was revealed who the identity of the shooter was, mouse farts, silence, quiet. I want to remember, you all remember, because I've kept this in the news for a while, even though everyone else has forgotten, that there was a shooter, a mass shooter, who had a hit list of 70 people, overwhelmingly liberals and Democrats in Minnesota, and then went and knocked on the doors of three elected representatives' houses. Thankfully, one of the houses didn't open, but two of them did. He shot and killed Melissa Hortman, state representative, and her husband. He also shot and injured another elected official. That man was Vance Bolter, right? They were all saying, oh, it's the left, the left. Then they found out, oh, it was Vance Bolter, a white man, Christian nationalist, Trump voter, MAGA enthusiast who was in part radicalized by QAnon. Have you heard Vance Bolter's name anywhere? Did the New York Yankees do a moment of silence for Melissa Hortman? That's what they did for Charlie Kirk. And I'm going to tell you all why I think it is okay to condemn political violence, if indeed it was political violence. Regardless, you condemn political violence. You condemn Charlie Kirk's murder. We still don't have a suspect. And you condemn Charlie Kirk's life of hate. He was a hate monger, a racist, a conspiracy theorist. He wasted his life and his talents to promote hate and authoritarian agenda. You can say both. I condemn Charlie Kirk's murder, and I condemn his lifetime of hate and the use and abuse of his talents to radicalize the youth. And before this, however long I speak is over, I'm going to condemn and bring all the receipts of Donald Trump's stochastic terrorism. All right. You all with me? Is everyone still with me? All right, here we go. We have Donald Trump. He just said today it's liberal criticism of conservatives that was directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. We have Republicans and MAGA and Fox blaming liberals and the left. We have, I don't know if you all have seen the Washington Post write-up of Charlie Kirk. It is the most sanitized, whitewashed hagiography of a man. It's like a saintly biography, completely whitewashing all of his sins, his hateful rhetoric, which, by the way, he was proud of. It was all there, folks, and I'm going to bring the receipts, right? And I want you all to think about this for a second. Louis Farrakhan, right? Promoted hate, anti-Semitism, a leader of Black Muslims, a nation of Islam. Imagine if the same thing, God forbid, I'm not advocating political violence. Same thing happened to him. Do you think he would be treated with such sanity? Would they have whitewashed all of his horrific comments that he's made? Of course not. Look how they treat Charlie Kirk. It's not both sides. It's one side. Every Democrat so far has come out and condemned this violence. Most people I know have condemned this violence. But you know what Donald Trump did? After he survived the assassination attempt, when he put the big diaper on his ear to cosplay, when he was given a written script at the RNC and all he had to do was stay on script and he couldn't stay on script and then he rambled for 9,000 words. You all remember? Go look at the video. He mocked and ridiculed Paul Pelosi. He made that hammer motion. Who was Paul Pelosi? For you all remember, Paul Pelosi is Nancy Pelosi's husband. A deranged Trump supporter showed up at her house trying to hurt her, but he opened the door instead, took a hammer, almost killed him. Donald Trump, with a diaper on his ear, surviving an assassination attempt, could not hide his cruelty. The fact is that while he was there with a diaper on his ear, he still mocked Paul Pelosi being hammered. Charlie Kirk, folks, openly said, why is that man, the attacker, still in jail? He encouraged his followers, when that was happening, to bail him out. Charlie Kirk would be alive today, most likely, if he advocated for gun control. I'm going to say this again. Gun control could have saved Charlie Kirk's life. This is what Charlie Kirk said in 2023 after another school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. This is the exact quote. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. He said that in 2023, following another school shooting. Translation, I think it's worth it to have a cost of some gun deaths every single year if it's some other people being killed, not me. If it's your wife, your daughter, your kids, your school, it's fine so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our God-given rights. When you get shot, it's fine. Civility for me cruelty for thee. Safe spaces for me, no safe spaces for thee. Uh, gun safety for me, gun violence for thee. Right? That's what it is. It is not a reciprocal relationship. And now that I enter into this next phase of my talk, speech, rant, TED talk, I'm going to be very blunt, folks, and I'm going to bring all the receipts. Do not for a second concede an inch to the bad faith bullshit of all these right wingers, Donald Trump, MAGA, and all these establishment hacks who are finger wagging at the rest of us for bringing out all the receipts of Charlie Kirk's hateful life, and for us reminding them about how Donald Trump and MAGA have celebrated and are currently celebrating violence against the rest of us. Do not let them shame you. Do not let them say, "Oh, how dare you." F that. F that. This is how you bend the knee and concede to bad faith right wing talking points. If you have seen, every single powerful institution in America bends the knee to bad faith right wing actors. They whine and complain, and we all have to apologize, right? Meanwhile, they get to punch us in the face, spit at us, mock us, call us pedophiles, call us rapists. Donald Trump says that we're invaders. Stephen Miller calls us invaders. He says we're insurrecting. They say that we're the enemy of the people, we're the enemy of the state. I think Islam hates us. I get to grab women by the pee. And then when we call them out on it, what do they say? Take a joke. Stop being politically correct, right? When Tony Hinchcliffe goes in before the election at Madison Square Garden and makes fun of Puerto Rico and all those people make fun of black people and Muslims and women. What did J.D. Vance say? Take a joke. Why can't you all just take a joke? We're just kidding. Stop being so weak, right? So F that. No, we're going to call it out. I'm not going to bend the knee. I'm going to bring all the receipts. I'm going to call you out for the hypocrite that you are, and relationships require reciprocity. You can't just slap me on both sides of the face and say that I'm not going to talk back. You can't, do Zig Heils and friggin' quote Adolf Hitler and say Nazis, very fine people on both sides, and have the Patriot Front marching in the streets and promote Nazi conspiracy theories of Haitians eating dogs and pets, which you knew was debunked, and you still did it. And you promote Nazi conspiracy theories of the replacement theory, right? The great replacement, which, by the way, Charlie Kirk also promoted these white nationalist conspiracy theories, and then say, oh my God, how dare you call us racist? How dare you say we're promoting Nazi conspiracy theories? It's your criticism of me that was directly responsible for the terrorism. Okay, if that's the case, then what do you say when you mock and ridicule actual violence done against innocent people like Paul Pelosi? When you encourage violence against the press, when you encourage violence against doctors, when you encourage violence against teachers, when you encourage violence against law enforcement, when you incite a violent insurrection against the United States and your Trump followers hunt Mike Pence and try to kill him. What is that then? Huh? What is it? What is it when you pardon Eddie Gallagher, a war criminal whose own Navy SEAL colleague said that he was a freak and a psychopath? What is it when you praise shooters like Kyle Rittenhouse and a man like Daniel Penny who choked a black man to death? What is it when Governor Abbott, for no reason whatsoever, pardons Daniel Perry, a man convicted in Texas for murdering a white man who was at a BLM rally? And you praise these people. What then? What is it when you call us, oh, I don't know, poisoning the blood? Again, Donald Trump quoted Hitler and said, people of color are poisoning the blood, that we come from shithole countries, right? That why can't the squad go back to their country, right? We're just supposed to sit there and take it. Nope, not me. I'm here to condemn political violence, regardless of who does it. I'm here to condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk. And tonight, I'm here to condemn Charlie Kirk's life of hate and Donald Trump's stochastic terrorism. Y'all with me? Y'all with me. All right. I brought some receipts about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a piece of shit. He was a hate monger. He was a bigot. He was a racist. He was a misogynist. He promoted white nationalism. He promoted anti-Semitism. He trafficked in the worst hate openly, without fear or favor of liberals. He openly said what had to be said to rile up his MAGA base. He radicalized young men and women in colleges, and he was a foot soldier for Donald Trump. Now, don't take my word for it. Let's look at the ADL. Oh, the Anti-Defamation League, which is now in bed with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Well, a couple of years ago, the ADL did a backgrounder on Turning Points USA. This organization that Kirk created in 2012, heavily funded by the right wing and probably folks with the left wing as well, let's be honest, because all these corporate titans are all wannabe fascists who are perfectly fine with Donald Trump's war on the woke. Uh, Go look at the ADL's own resource on Turning Points and Charlie Kirk and his hate. Okay, they call it a right-wing student organization. They say since its founding, he has moved further to the right, has promoted numerous conspiracy theories about election fraud, COVID-19, and demonized the transgender community. They said that Charlie Kirk promotes Christian nationalism, the idea that Christians should dominate the government and other areas of life. The ADL, said he continues to attract racists to the group. Numerous Turning Point USA reps have made bigoted remarks about minority groups and the LGBTQ plus community. White nationalists have attended TP USA events, even though the group says it rejects white supremacist ideology. Kirk has created a vast platform for extremists and far-right conspiracy theorists who speak and attend his annual America Fest and other events sponsored by TP USA. Someone should say this to Benjamin Netanyahu, who praised Charlie Kirk today. So did extremists Ben Gvir and Smotrich, war criminals. I wonder what they think about the fact that Charlie Kirk, although he loved Israel, had no problem promoting the replacement theory, which is an anti-Semitic white nationalist conspiracy theory that says that the Jews are the head of an international cabal trying to replace and weaken white people with the help of immigrants, Muslims, feminists, and people of color. The replacement theory, by the way, which has been mainstreamed by the right wing, by Donald Trump, by Elisa Slotkin and Charlie Kirk, is responsible in part for radicalizing violence against Jews. Robert the man who tried to I'm forgetting his name because it's late, but Tree of Life Synagogue, the white supremacist who killed 11 Jews, was parroting much of the same talking points before the 2018 midterm elections, talking about invasion, and he wanted to punish the quote evil filthy Jews for bringing in the evil filthy Muslims. He believed in replacement theory. Brenton Tarrant, the man who killed 50 Muslims in Christchurch, left behind a manifesto. For him, it was the replacement theory. It wasn't the Jews. It was the Muslims. There was also a couple months after him, the El Paso, Texas shooter, Prastic Crucius, was inspired by Brenton Tarrant. For him, the invaders weren't Muslims and Jews. It was, wait for it, Latinos, right? All of them were also, most of them were inspired by Anders Breivik, the Norwegian terrorist who 2011 left behind a 1,500-page manifesto promoting much of the racist, hateful talk and ideology of many right-wing ideologues, and he wanted to punish Europe for bringing in the Muslims, and he wanted to punish Europe for multiculturalism. He was also on the gun of the shooter just 2 weeks ago. The name of the shooter from Minneapolis, a confluence of all these different ideologies, the radicalized shooter, I want to get the name, which, by the way, the right wing really glommed on that particular shooter, folks. That was just 2 weeks ago, because that shooter, and I don't know if this was confirmed, was apparently transgender, or at one point, went by not a different gendered name. But Charlie Kirk and the right wing have glommed onto transgender mass shooters and further use that to weaponize their hate against the LGBTQ community. Conservative used Minneapolis shooting in anti-transgender campaign. That was from August 29th. New York Times. And the person who was doing that was Charlie Kirk. And the irony of ironies, folks, that Charlie Kirk, when he was speaking in Utah today, a person in the audience asked him about mass transgender shooters, right? And then he said, yes, that is a problem. And then also, he asked him about mass shooters, and Charlie Kirk said, and I want to get this quote, because look, the tragic irony. You can't make this up. The tragic irony. The questioner asked Kirk about transgender mass shooters before following up with, do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years? And Charlie Kirk's final words were, counting or not counting gang violence. Those were his final words. This is the same man who could have advocated for gun control, didn't. I want to remind the 1,000 people who are joining us. In 2023, following another school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, Charlie Kirk said, quote, You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. We don't have to live like this. Gun control could have saved Charlie Kirk's life, but Republicans worship guns and Donald Trump and violence. So even with this, instead of, talking about guns and gun control, nope, they've already blamed the left, just like they've already attacked transgender people as a result of another mass shooting that was just done 2 weeks ago at a Minneapolis school. And as this was happening, folks, for those 1,000 who are joining us, there was another mass shooting in neighboring Denver where 3 people were shot. Speaking of Charlie Kirk, he also said this about empathy. This is his words. I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made up new age term that does a lot of damage. And yet the right wing is demanding empathy for Charlie Kirk right now and blaming the left, even though there is no suspect as of 12:14 a.m. And Donald Trump is blaming the left, and Fox is blaming the left, and Wired has a pretty terrifying article out. I don't know if you all saw that. They're scouring right-wing media. And what they're saying, Wired, King right-wing violence, yeah. Quote, war is here. The far right responds to Charlie Kirk's shooting with calls for violence. Prominent far-right figures and elected officials have called for vengeance following the death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. We still don't have a shooter. We still don't know the ideology. We still don't know the motive. I want to remind y'all, Donald Trump's shooter was a white male gun aficionado Republican Trump voter. I wonder what will happen, and I wonder how this tune will change if it is revealed that in Utah it was a radicalized white Trumper. Folks, I've been saying this for a while. I've been telling Republicans and Trump, you better be careful because you've radicalized the MAGA base with conspiracy theories. And you are saying the left, the left, the left. But when it comes to gun violence in this country, the overwhelming majority of shooters are white men, gun aficionados, people with mental health issues, overwhelmingly, not exclusively, right wing. Number one domestic terror threat in America is right wing violence. The shooter for Donald Trump was, wait for it, a radicalized white Republican. Vance Bolter, the white Christian nationalist who tried to kill, had a hit list of 70 liberals in Minnesota, killed Melissa Hortman and her husband, a white conservative shooter radicalized by QAnon. By the way, I didn't hear Donald Trump say anything about Melissa Hortman. I didn't hear the New York Yankees do a moment of prayer or pause for Melissa Hortman. I don't see any news stories on Vance Bolter as soon as it was revealed that he was a white Republican, anti-abortion Christian nationalist, right? Speaking about QAnon, folks, Vance Bolter was part and parcel radicalized by QAnon, the hateful right-wing conspiracy that in 2020 the FBI warned would radicalize individuals and groups to commit violence. That is a conspiracy. That says that the Jews are a part of an international cabal using basically anyone who's against Trump. Law enforcement, liberals, the press, yada, 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 who are part of an international sex trafficking cabal that actually worship the devil and they kill kids and drink their blood. I'm not making this up. They knew how fringe this was. They knew how dangerous it was, but his base had glommed onto it. So Donald Trump, in the past couple of years, mainstreamed it. Vance Bolter was in part radicalized by the QAnon conspiracy. You know who else was radicalized by the QAnon conspiracy? Ashley Babbitt. Ashley Babbitt was one of the thousands of Trumpers who was there, who heard his call for violence on January 6th, and was one of the many violent insurrectionists. She came there with violence on her mind. Look at her background. Look at her post. She was also radicalized, wait for it, by QAnon. She was killed by a police officer because she was, wait for it, resisting arrest and trying to illegally and violently enter. I predicted 4 years ago in a piece in the Daily Beast, because it's the world's worst I told you so, folks. I've been covering this for 14 years. I've been saying that they would radicalize. I also said a couple of years ago, look at the receipts, that by 2024, 2025, white nationalist talking points would be mainstream. I also said in 2019 that Donald Trump will not leave. And I'm telling you all now, he's not going to leave peacefully. He's not going to leave. He's not going to leave. He's not going to leave. If he leaves, it's because he's an old man. He's going to die and be incapacitated, but he ain't leaving. And I also think, I've also said they're going to use a Reichstag fire to normalize unleashing the military against the American public. The Reichstag fire was Big Balls. Yes, Big Balls, the 19-year-old Doge member who alleged that he was carjacked by a bunch of like POC teens, which is why Donald Trump unleashed the National Guard in the nation's capital, where they're just wasting their time right now, right? Well, this is their Reichstag fire. This is their new martyr. Ashley Babbitt has become a martyr. Charlie Kirk is the bigger martyr. They will use this if indeed it was, I don't know, some liberal or lefty. We don't know. We still don't know. They will use this to rationalize unleashing the National Guard and the military everywhere. And Stephen Miller has already used the word insurrection. He has already used the word invasion. Donald Trump, they want him to use the Insurrection Act to federalize these troops against the American public. And folks, you aren't paying attention. He's already going after voting rights, gerrymandering. He's openly saying, I want 100 seats. Texas followed. Missouri's about to follow. Every single red state's gonna follow. They're gonna gerrymander and give him the seats. He also is going after mail-in voting, which he himself has used. He's also threatening his critics, judges, even John Bolton, trying to silence them, right? This is all happening in real time, folks. What do you think is going to happen if it seems like he's going to lose the midterms? What I have always said, if I was Donald Trump and I had the Supreme Court, which just gave him a thumbs up to racially profile and crack skulls in LA, if I had the House where Mike Johnson, a super Christian, just straight up lied to protect him from the Epstein scandal, which ain't going away, and said, Donald Trump is an FBI informant. And like, excuse me, what? And on Monday he goes, I'm walking it back. You have the House, the Republican in the Senate, who will do everything as he says. Rest in peace, Tom Tillis, who didn't go along with the big beautiful bill. And by the way, now he's retiring. You have ICE, which now has been jacked up and has 10,000 agents and has a budget of $180 billion thanks to the big beautiful bill. Because in addition to the $3 trillion tax cuts for the rich, they also gave $180 billion to ICE, which means, folks, that ICE has a larger budget than most countries spend on their military. Specifically, if ICE was a country, they would have the 16th largest budget when it comes to countries spending their money on military. That ICE is his Gestapo and the National Guard and the military. And so when Stephen Miller, according to the Wall Street Journal, unleashed ICE agents in LA against Home Depot and 7-Eleven, he wanted an escalation. That's what he wanted. That's what the insiders were saying. If there is escalation, if people protest, if there's one person who, I don't know, throws a sandwich at one of these people, what are they going to do? Donald Trump is going to declare martial law, and Donald Trump is going to unleash the military and ICE against the American public. He will say, as the commander-in-chief, the power vested in me, I have to protect this country. I will pause elections, but don't you worry. Those elections will come back once we've cleaned the streets and gotten rid of Antifa and BLM and Tren de Aragua and fill in the blank boogeyman. Do you all see it? Do you all see it? It's 12:21. We still do not have a suspect in custody. We still do not have any motive. We don't even know if it was a political violence. We don't know. And the president of the United States of America came out and blamed liberal criticism of conservatives for being, quote, directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today. Not the actual, terrorists, not actual violent insurrectionists that he's pardoned, not, ICE agents who are terrorizing Americans, not the fact that, innocent brown people were detained and deported to CCOT. Everyone's saying Charlie Kirk is a father and Charlie Kirk is a husband. Abrego Garcia is also a father and a husband. MAGA doesn't give a shit. All those brown men, the 200 brown men without due process who were detained and kidnapped in the middle of the night and sent to friggin' die in CCOT in El Salvador for money. They also had family members, okay? The police officers who sat there trying to fend off 1,600 or more violent insurrectionists, the ones that were beaten with pipes, mace, they also had family members, including the ones who killed themselves from the trauma. They mocked those Capitol Hill police officers. They called them crisis actors, right? When Paul Pelosi was almost killed, Trump mocked him. Charlie Kirk mocked him and told his base to free him, right? Nothing for Melissa Hortman, right? When it comes to Liz Cheney and speaking about liberal criticism of conservatives directly responsible for terrorism, I want to talk about stochastic terrorism real quick, folks. And if you're a nerd who's been watching me and Dahlia Litwick on Mary Trump's Nerd Avenger. Dahlia and I have been using this word stochastic terrorism for a while, and people are like, what the F are you talking about? And we've been saying this ever since the Trump's term, right? Right before he was about to leave. And especially in Trump's second term as it escalated, especially with Biden's term with COVID. Stochastic terrorism describes how public figures use inflammatory, dehumanizing, or hateful rhetoric, which can create an environment where it becomes statistically more likely, though not individually predictable, that an ideologically aligned person will commit a violent act. Trump is a stochastic terrorist. Now, let me bring the receipts. You all with me? Let me take a glass of water. A sip of water. 10 years ago, Donald Trump, when he was running, comes down the bronze escalators, calls Mexicans rapists and criminals, right? When he does his rallies and there were protesters, we have him on camera openly encouraging his fans and base to beat up the protesters. He said that he would pay for their lawsuits. Beat him up, I'll pay for it. He wouldn't pay for anything, he'll stiff them. He has openly encouraged violence against the press for 10 years, using Stalin's word and calling them the enemy of the state. Caesar, I keep receipts. Caesar Sayok is in jail right now, an unhinged man who in the side of his van, right, had like a hit list of all of the people that Trump criticized. He sent them functional pipe bombs, including journalists, and he said, I was radicalized by Fox News. I thought I was helping Trump. This last election, there was this one unhinged guy who tried to climb over the rafter and attack CNN. Remember that? And Donald Trump from the stage, he goes, yeah, get them. They're the enemy. They're the enemy. Get them. He praised Greg Gianforte, a House Republican who body slammed at that time a Guardian reporter. He said, oh, yeah, that's my type of guy. This is the man who incited a violent insurrection. According to Republicans who were there, like Cassidy Hutchinson, he knew Mike Pence was being thrown to the wolves. He knew that Mike Pence could die. He celebrated it and encouraged it. He didn't call the National Guard to help and protect the Capitol Hill police officers or Republicans or Democrats in the Capitol. He could have, but he didn't. Right? Those violent insurrectionists were Trump supporters. The person who tried to kill him was a Trump supporter. The person who tried to assassinate Paul Pelosi was a Trump supporter. The person who sent mail bombs was Caesar Sayok, a Trump supporter. The person who attacked and killed a judge's son was a Trump supporter. Donald Trump has imagined violence against Liz Cheney. He talked about having a military tribunal for her. He imagined just a couple of months ago of a firing squad shooting at her, and then they said it was a joke. Donald Trump is the man who, once he started attacking law enforcement and the deep state, the next day, folks, check it out, an unhinged Trump supporter tried to attack the FBI headquarters, if I remember, in Cincinnati, Ohio. He wins the Charles Darwin Award because he was shot and killed. All right. Educators, as a result of the post-COVID and also, masking in schools and also due to CRT, educators for the first time in their life, go check it out, sent a letter to useless piece of shit Merrick Garland asking for security and help and saying that there were threats of violence for the first time. Go check it out. Educators banded together and asked the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, please protect us. Stochastic violence against educators, against medical officials, Fauci, people trying to protect our lives, law enforcement officials, poll watchers, poll workers, right? Ruby May, their lives were upended because Trump and Rudy Giuliani targeted them. The CDC, thank you, Courtney. Judges, right? Botox Levitt, without any proof, when she talked about the Ukrainian refugee, why the F do we have Ukrainian refugees? Because Donald Trump is Putin's poodle and Russia invaded Ukraine, which is why we have freaking Ukrainian refugees. But Donald Trump has promoted Russian talking points and blamed Ukraine for being invaded, has only put conditions on Ukraine, as Russia now is trying to start freaking World War III and sent drones in Poland. And what did this dumbass this weak, pathetic, criminal, corrupt leader, this corpulent, cankled vulgarian. What did he say? I want to tell exactly what he said. As this is the president of the United States, Putin, the war criminal, who, by the way, against our ally, our NATO ally, Poland, sent drones. This is what he said. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go. That's what he said. So please spare me. Please spare me all the moralizing. Spare me the paternalistic finger wagging. Spare me, you establishment hacks who are sitting there saying, you can't talk about this right now. Spare me the whitewashed hagiography of Charlie Kirk, a man who, folks, don't believe me. Check this out. Read this right now. Turning Point USA, a case study of the hard right in 2024. That was from last year, folks. Literally, Southern Poverty Law Center goes down the line and uses example after example of how we promoted authoritarianism, patriarchal Christian supremacy, mocked and ridiculed the LGBTQ, mocked and ridiculed women, mocked and ridiculed black people, mocked and ridiculed immigrants, supported Trump and his racist conspiracy theories every single step of the way. About Muslims, this is what he said about Muslims recently. Islam is invading and incompatible with the West. All right. The gaslighting, it's infuriating. That's why I went live. I cannot abide this. I cannot abide this. I cannot abide all these establishment hanks, all these institutions, all these people saying, oh, just, you can't say anything right now. He was a father and a husband. So was Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So were the Capitol Hill police officers. Melissa Hortman was a mother and a wife. All those people who friggin' Vance Bolter tried to kill were also family members. The people that ICE are cracking down on right now are family members, right? Mahmoud Khalil missed the birth of his daughter because he was friggin' plucked without any due process and sent to detention for 100 days. The 11 Venezuelans who were killed, we still have no evidence whatsoever that these 11 Venezuelans on the boat that Donald Trump killed unilaterally without any due process were criminals. They haven't released the victims. The boat, we just found out from today in New York Times, was turning around, and they still blew it out of the water in international waters, which again, saber rattling. Venezuela then had to, swirl its planes around our ships, escalation, no evidence. And then when Brian Krasenstein he replied back to J.D. Vance, who was cosplaying as a tough guy, and said this is a war crime, J.D. Vance said, I don't give a shit. That's what J.D. Vance said on Twitter. When our people are killed, they don't give a shit. When our people are detained, they don't give a shit. When our people are humiliated, they don't give a shit. When our people are beaten with hammers, they don't give a shit. When our family members are terrorized, they don't give a shit. And what I've always said is I'm not a psychopath, which is why I don't need people to suffer in order to feel great again. Let me repeat this. Jill, my blood pressure is fine. I'm just passionate. I'm just talking. I promise. I'm okay. I got water here. I don't need them to suffer in order to feel great again. That's the difference between me and MAGA. I don't want them to suffer in order to feel great again. I want their kids to have healthcare. I want their kids to have economic opportunity. I want their families to feel safe and secure. I want them to be able to travel the world without people spitting at us, calling us ugly Americans. I want them to be married, have kids, have their kids and their moms, get adequate health care, maternity care. I want them to have paid paternal and maternal leave. I want their kids to have good, affordable child care. I want them to have good opportunities. I want them to have good Wi-Fi. All right. I want them to have good teeth and good health also. I do not need people to suffer in order to feel great again. They need the rest of us to suffer in order to feel great again. Not just be great again, to feel great again. The feeling of superiority, the temporary high, the soma, the adrenaline hit they get through their cruelty, through our tears, through seeing us cry, that's what gets them off. That's their porn, right? They need us to suffer in order to feel great again. It's the cruelty, the viciousness, right? That's what gets them off. I don't need them to suffer in order to feel great again, right? Even with all this, I'm still condemning Charlie Kirk's murder because it's a murder. And political violence is terrible in this country with more than 400 million guns and more mass shootings than any other country on earth. This will escalate, folks. This will escalate. It is not good for any of us. It makes us all unsafe. which is why when I want gun control, it's not because I want to save blue children and Democratic children. I want to save all children. I want to save all children, white children, black children, brown children, immigrant children, undocumented children, even undocumented children who go to school, citizen children. I want to save all children. When I want kids in Florida to get vaccinated and have freaking measles vaccines, which no longer now are required, I want to protect these people. Florida, Texas, red states, right? I want to protect you. I don't want your child to die from measles, something which is completely avoidable. Now there's a friggin' measles spike because there's vaccine hesitancy thanks to the right wing that has promoted disinformation. Who is it going to kill? Your families. Who is going to kill your elders? I want you to have Medicaid. Even though you want me to suffer, I want you to have Medicaid. Because I know the $1 trillion cuts to Medicaid, they're going to shut down 20% of rural hospitals, 20% of rural nurses. Who is going to die? Poor people are going to die. And you know who else is going to die? You know who votes in those rural counties? Trump voters. So that's the difference between me and you, MAGA triple Trumpers. And it's a big difference. And I want you all to know it's a big difference. And I am not going to be lectured by any MAGA triple Trumper, any friggin' Republican like Mike Lee, the senator of Utah, who, when it was revealed that there was a shooter in Minnesota. Do you remember what Mike Lee said while there was a school shooting in Minnesota? Massacre on Wall Street, right? He had these two tweets mocking him. Super religious Mike Lee of Utah, state that happened today, Utah, right? Can you imagine if a Democrat had done that? That's what they did. That's what they did just to troll Tim Walz, right? In Minnesota, massacre on Wall Street, right? Mocking, ridiculing, celebrating as ICE cracks down skulls, making the violent insurrectionists into heroes, the back the blue no matter what. Yeah, mocking and ridiculing the Capitol police officers. So I condemn political violence. We still don't know if this was political violence because we do not have the suspect. If we do have the suspect, let me know. It's 12:35 right now. I condemn the violence and the murder, as one should. I'm very consistent. I will bring all my receipts, folks. You got it there for my entire writing career. It's all up there. But, same can be said for MAGA. Because while I condemn political violence, they sometimes celebrate political violence when it's their guy doing it. They love the violent insurrectionists. Ashley Babbitt is a martyr and a hero. Oh, Eddie Gallagher, the Navy SEAL who knifed that Iraqi kid who was detained, pardoned by Donald Trump. Ross Ulbricht, the founder of Silk Road, the digital hub of sex trafficking and money trafficking and drug trafficking, pardoned by Donald Trump for his crypto bros. Daniel Penny choked the black man, hero. The McCloskeys, who illegally brandished guns against peaceful BLM protesters, remember in the 2020 RNC? Given a plum spot at the 2020 RNC, heroes, right? Daniel Perry, hero, right? Kyle Rittenhouse, hero, right? Folks, one of their heroes is Charlie Kirk, who was a terrible human being. Charlie Kirk was a piece of shit. I don't care. I'll say it. And you can call him a piece of shit and still feel terrible for his murder. You can call him a piece of shit who mocked and ridiculed Jews, black people, immigrants, women, trans people, Muslims, who promoted hate, promoted conspiracy theories, and still say it was horrible that he died. His legacy was one of bigotry and hate and cruelty. If indeed he was charismatic and talented, as Washington Post state, he wasted it and squandered it in service of a criminal vulgarian, a man who bragged about grabbing women by the pee, a man who partied with the #1 pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, who said it was his closest friend, a man who incited a violent insurrectionist and has now unleashed the National Guard against the American people. Charlie Kirk supported and promoted the crackdown on black and brown people, supports the deportations, cruelty, absolute cruelty. And the irony, the tragic irony that this is how he was killed. As literally, folks, I want to repeat what he said. I want to get it for those who are joining us late. I want to get it. I'm trying to give you the facts. Right now, we still don't know the ideology or the motives of the suspect. Hasn't stopped who? The right wing from blaming the left, including Donald Trump. All right. And so far, everybody that I've seen as a Democratic leader has condemned it. And I, for one, actually, well, before I tell you whose response I really liked, A questioner asked Charlie Kirk about transgender mass shooters, which isn't a thing, by the way. It's like rare. The number one mass shooter overwhelmingly is white men, and they were using the school shooting of 2 weeks ago in Minnesota to champion their hateful crusade against transgender folks, right? And so he was talking about that. He said, yes, yes. So after asking him about transgender mass shooters, he asked Kirk, do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the past 10 years? Counting or not counting gang violence were Charlie Kirk's final words before being shot in the neck by what seems like a high-powered sniper. The tragic irony that the man who mocked and ridiculed gun control, the man who said that empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage, that's how he was killed. The man who said, I think it's worth to have you will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That's nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights, end quote. I don't think he was thinking about his own tragic death. Leopard that eats faces, you vote for them, they eat faces. What I've always said is that white supremacy is destructive, but ultimately is destructive. It has always been self-destructive. Fascism eats its own. The one thing that MAGA never counted on was promoting these hateful conspiracy theories like QAnon. They thought they would promote it. It'll help Trump win. He'll get in the office. And then we, now control the base. What they didn't realize is what happens if Frankenstein's monster escapes the lab. What happens if Frankenstein's monster turns on its creator? The people who are after the Trump administration for the Epstein scandal, it wasn't the liberals. Wall Street Journal is what published it first, the book, information about the book. Then Wall Street Journal doubled down and published more names associated with Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday book. Then Wall Street Journal said that Pam Bondi, the attorney general, told Donald Trump in May he was all over the Epstein files, which means the Trump administration has been engaged in a cover-up. This is the word you have to use, a cover-up since May. They have been lying to the American people about the Epstein files. And then Todd Blanche, Deputy Attorney General never leaves D.C., he goes and talks to Glenn Maxwell for 2 days. You know who doesn't go talk to Glenn Maxwell? The special prosecutor. It's usually the special prosecutor who goes and talks to the defendant, right? Oh, yeah, Maureen Comey was fired. Todd Blanche talks to her for 2 days. Less than a week later, Glenn Maxwell is transferred to a minimum security camp in Texas, a sweetheart deal that has never been given to anyone ever before, for no reason. To this day, we have no idea who in the Bureau of Prisons authorized it and why. Donald Trump still has not answered why Glenn Maxwell, a child predator who, according to the victims of the survivors of Epstein, was complicit and at times worse than Epstein because they trusted her. She stalked them, she groomed them, and according to Virginia Giuffre and the Farmer Sisters, she also raped these girls along with Epstein. So, you know who hasn't let go of the Epstein files? It wasn't the liberals. It was MAGA. MAGA that was radicalized by QAnon because they were demanded. They were promised that when Donald Trump and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi would get in there, that they would clean up the deep state and reveal that the rest of us are part of an international cabal that is trying to replace and weaken Western civilization by sex trafficking kids, and we worship the devil and drink their blood. I'm not making this up, folks. And if you will, the holy grail that would prove it would be the Epstein files. Well, guess what? Donald Trump is all up in the Epstein files, which is why those files ain't never, ever, 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 ever getting released. And we just found out a couple of days ago that House Democrats released some of the most disgusting, filthy, vile photos from the Epstein's birthday book. Go check it out. Go check out that book. And just first and foremost, Donald Trump's alleged drawing and note corresponds to Wall Street Journal's reporting word for word from last month. It's his signature, it's his drawing style, and it is gross. If you read more of the stuff. It is clear that everybody knew Epstein was a pedophile. It's disgusting. Donald Trump is also the man who in 2002 said, Epstein, terrific guy. He likes girls almost as much as I do, but on the younger side. He partied with Epstein from the late 80s. He partied with him in the 90s. They both had modeling agencies. They chased models ages 14 to 20, according to Michael Wolff when I talked to him. We have the videos. We have the photos. Jeffrey Epstein said that Donald Trump was his closest friend. Why am I saying this, folks? Be careful who you radicalize, MAGA. Be careful who you radicalize. And I remember I said this because they're all banking on gun-toting MAGA turning those guns on us, anyone who's not MAGA. But what they didn't expect is some of these folks, they take pedophilia seriously. They take child predation seriously. They were promised answers. And if they believe that Trump and others are complicit in the cover-up, what happens if these radicalized people turn on Trump and Republicans? And furthermore, because I bring the receipts, I want to remind you all that 2 years ago, Mitt Romney, when he came out with his autobiography, he didn't say that it was the leftists or BLM or Antifa that his fellow Republican colleagues were afraid of. Did you know who he said that his Republican colleagues are terrified of? Their base. Their Republican colleagues are terrified of right-wing violence from their base. The same base that participated in a violent insurrection in which all these cowards were literally being protected by police officers praying, thinking they were going to die. And Josh Hawley, who was a tough man and did his fist, you see that video of him running away? And then also Eric Swalwell, because I bring the receipts, from 6 months ago, said that his Republican colleagues say that they can't go against Trump because they are terrified, not of liberal criticism, according to Donald Trump, not of these criticism of conservatives or these bad words. They're terrified of their base because they're terrified their base will kill them. All right? Mike Pence, the whitest, most Christian man on earth, was running for his life on January 6th. Folks, I don't know how long I've been talking. I had to get that off my chest. If there are any questions, I've never done Q&A. Let me know if anyone has any questions. I'll stick around for a couple minutes. Questions, thoughts, concerns. For those who joined this late, I'll have this up. I call this my TED Talk on condemning Charlie Kirk's murder, on condemning his life of hate, and on condemning Trump's stochastic terrorism. I brought the receipts. I believe I have made my case. And furthermore, my request for all of you, do not concede an inch. Do not be browbeaten, lectured, hectored by these finger-wagging cowards and establishment hacks who say that we cannot bring up MAGA and Trump's hypocrisy when it comes to glorifying and celebrating violence against the rest of us. Now is not the time. Now's the time. No, you can't talk about Charlie Kirk being a hate monger. Of course you can. You can condemn his murder and talk about his hateful legacy. You can condemn his murder and condemn political violence and condemn Trump glorifying political violence. Now is the time. Do not be a weakling. And if any Democrat bends a knee, F those Democrats, man. Tell those Democrats, F you, get a spine. And this is where I promised I want to read you a quote earlier today from Pritzker. Pritzker was good. This is a good quote. And, you know, all these right-wing people came after him. And I hope he has not apologized. I really hope he has not apologized. Pritzker said, give me a second. Anyone have the Pritzker quote? Here we go. Political violence, unfortunately, has ramped up in this country. I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. Correct. Stochastic terrorism. The mother effer who joked about Paul Pelosi being hammered. The mother effer who pardoned 1,600 insurrectionists. The person who has not a word to say about white supremacist terrorism, the number one terror threat in America. The person who had nothing to say to Melissa Horman or her family after Vance Bolter had a hit list of 70 people and shot and killed 4 folks and killed 2 elected officials. That Donald Trump. That Donald Trump, yeah. That Donald Trump who praises war criminal Vladimir Putin. That Donald Trump who helps an Israeli pedophile escape justice, who was caught in a sting operation a couple of weeks ago in Vegas for trying to solicit sex from a 15-year-old online. And thank God that 15-year-old was an FBI agent. So 8 people were arrested. 7 of them are still here. The Israeli cybersecurity official back in Israel. So much for protecting kids. If you protect kids, release the Epstein files. If you're an FBI informant, show your work. If you love kids so much, why'd you give a sweetheart deal to Ghislaine Maxwell? If you're for protecting us, why'd you give a pardon to Ross Ulbricht, the head of Silk Road? Why did you give a pardon to Eddie Gallagher? Why are you celebrating violent insurrectionists? Why did you pardon them? Just throwing it out there. So Charlie Kirk was a hateful piece of shit. He was a bigot. He was a transphobe. He was a xenophobe. He promoted white nationalism. He promoted patriarchy. He was against the separation of church and state. He hated Muslims. He trafficked with bigots and hate mongers and anti-Semites. Uh, he used his life and his talents to corrupt and pervert so many young people. And he could have done so much more. And the irony is that gun control, which he railed against, gun control, which he said was not necessary, the man who thought that some gun violence was necessary to protect our Second Amendment rights, as long as there were other victims of gun violence, the tragic irony, while talking about mass shooting, he was killed. Um, Folks, here we are. My fear is it's going to get worse. My fear is that this is a country of 400 million guns. My fear is that this economy is going into a recession. There's more disinformation. Uh, Generational damage has already been done. We're looking at a viral collapse of our public healthcare infrastructure system. Viruses are going to increase. People are going to die. Just wait till Medicare collapses in 2026. People are going to die. America is getting further isolated. Russia and Netanyahu are playing Trump like a fiddle. I strongly recommend checking out my conversation I had with Olivia Troy earlier today. We called it the axis of evil: Trump, Netanyahu, and Putin. And we said that Trump is the Fredo of the group. And folks, real quick to connect the dots, Trump unilaterally just executed 11 people in Venezuela and claimed that they were terrorists and claimed that they were drug traffickers without any evidence. And when accused of committing war crimes, J.D. Vance said, "I don't give a shit." What do you think they'll do to us? What happens if he says, if you support X, Y, and Z, you're a terrorist group? If you aid and fund X, Y, and Z, you support and aid terrorists? Look what they're doing right now in Chicago, in DC, in LA. Look what the Supreme Court said. You can racially profile and crack skulls. Look who they arrested. They pardoned the violent insurrectionists. They temporarily arrested the guy who threw a sandwich. Folks, be prepared. Eyes wide open. I don't think people are still prepared. It can't happen here, Waj. It can't happen here. You're suffering from a failure of imagination. Armed National Guard members are 20 minutes away from me in the nation's capital. Masked armed ICE agents are terrorizing brown people in LA. Charlie Kirk is given a hero's welcome at the New York, by the New York Yankees, and a hagiography in the Washington Post. Every single president gave a comment about Charlie Kirk, a man who's a hate monger, a man who promoted bigotry. And for me, it's about the both sides, right? Both sides, both sides. Okay, both sides. Charlie Kirk, a man whose legacy is of hate. Who gets valued? Who gets whitewashed? And it's proof to me tonight. Whose life matters? Our lives don't matter. And some of these white pundits and white establishment hacks who are sermonizing to the rest of us, you know why they're allowed to sermonize? Because this hate doesn't affect them. Because they're not Mexican or brown skin or Muslim or Latino or women or trans, right? So they can afford to be holier than thou and say, no, 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 please don't criticize Charlie Kirk. Come on, brown cow. How dare you say that? Yeah, because none of this affects you until it does. Until it does, oh whites, white moderates, white centrists, white Democrats, white Republicans, white establishment hacks who think you'll be safe from fascism. I give you Mike Pence running for his life. I tried to be very fair tonight. I have all the receipts and I have my track record. I have been consistent in condemning violent extremism and violence and political violence. And we still don't know if it was political violence. We condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk, regardless of who did it or the intention. We don't have a suspect. We don't know their ideology, regardless of the right wing is what they're saying. And ask yourself this question: if we don't have a suspect and we don't know their motivation, then why is the right wing banging the drums that it was the left and leftist rhetoric? Huh? Huh? Maybe they want to unleash, oh, I don't know, the military and National Guard against blue cities. Oh, wait, they're already doing it. Um, and I want to remind people that they also said this when it came to Trump's assassin, until it was discovered and revealed that his assassin was a white gun lover Republican who voted for Trump. And then quiet. Once it was revealed that it was Vance Bolter, a white man, Christian nationalist Trump voter, who shot and killed Melissa Hortman and her husband, quiet, not a peep. So let's see. Let's see, folks. Um, you can condemn and should condemn, in my humble opinion, political violence, murder of political pundits. It will not be good for anyone, regardless of how much you loathe them or love them. It's terrible. And you can be honest and condemn the hate of that person by bringing the receipts and talk about the hateful legacy of that person. And you could tie it to the utter naked hypocrisy of Trump and MAGA, who demand safe spaces for themselves, but want cruelty and violence imposed upon the rest of us. And I, for one, am here to expose their hypocrisy and their celebration of both violence and stochastic terrorism. I brought the receipts. Do not give an inch. Do not give an inch. Do not give an inch to these people. Put it back in their face, okay? You don't owe them anything. And I see more and more people giving zero Fs. Good. I'm glad. Bring out the receipts. Condemn the murder and condemn Charlie Kirk's hateful ideology and call out the hypocrisy. I hope this was helpful. I don't know how long I've been speaking. For those who joined late, the 1,400 people, I tried my best to bring the receipts. Thank you, Leanne. I tried. And in the quotes. If you think this is useful, share it. And if you aren't a subscriber, please subscribe. And I might be back on tomorrow with my co-host Danielle Moody. We'll talk about it. We usually go on Wednesday and Friday, but I think we want to really break this down because I know the right wing, I know corporate media, I know how power works, and unfortunately, I'm talking to some friends who also follow the news. I knew exactly this would happen. Called it. Said Trump is going to do this. This is what the right wing is going to do. Yeah, it's the world's worst. I told you so. So this is what we know. Someone said I started when? 11:54. Oh, so we went for an hour. Oh, good timing. All right, look at that. All right, folks. Take care of yourself. Rest. It's going to be a long walk. Remember, we have the numbers. We have the numbers. Be decent. Be kind. I want to end with this. There is a difference between me and triple Trumper MAGAs, and there's a difference if you are like me. We do not need people to suffer in order to feel great again. They need us to suffer in order to feel great again. And that's the difference. So there you have it. Be kind, be decent, be empathetic, and please, oh please, don't be a fascist. Take care.